Have you ever wondered about greed? Is it natural? Do all humans suffer from greed? Do other creatures suffer from greed? What exactly ignites greed? I have an acquaintance, a Jewish fellow. He's a bit rough around the edges, but that's not the point. The point is, when he was 5 years of age, Grandma gave him, I think it was £5 or £1 or something for a birthday present. Well, he decided at 5 years of age that he didn't like being in a poor family, and he wanted to be rich in the future when he grew up. So that was the very beginning of him saving. After that, he never bought any sweets. Any money he got went straight into his savings. Right up to the age of 15, when he went out to work. And he was working, installing double glazing. A lot of that was happening at the time, in the 60s. He could have got 3p more each day, I think, if he had worked outside putting the glass in, but he couldn't bear the heights, so he used to just stay in and fit the glasses from inside the buildings. It might be, 3p a day, I think, extra. But there again, who can tell? Maybe it was 3p an hour extra. People didn't earn that much anyway, especially when you left school. You didn't earn enough to live on, really. But he saved and saved and saved. And eventually, in his early 20s, he saved enough to get a deposit for a house. And the rest, of course, was borrowed from the bank. And as he was in constant employment, there was no problem borrowing money from the bank. So he still, at this point, he still hasn't got greedy. He just doesn't want to be poor. That seems reasonable, doesn't it? Anyway, at the age of around 22, he bought his first house. It was a bit run down, and that's what he wanted. So he spent a bit of money to do it up. And what happens when you get a mortgage on the house, you ask for more than you need. So you've got the money then from the bank to do the place up, which he did, you see. And he sold it at a profit. And they was one of the contracts was with Harrods, doing all the glassware for Harrods. But they didn't have the main contract. It was another company what had the main contract. And the main people used to give them all the hard work when it came to messing about with glass. But because he had that connection with Harrods, he went straight into the manager's office and done a deal with him so that he and his company that he worked for would get all the business. Now, so once he got that contract, he got a loan from the bank on that contract to buy out half shares of the company that he worked for, the glass company. It was only a small glass company, but they'd done regular work. He bought one of the partners out. So this shows you how intelligent he is. And this sort of intelligence is, you're probably born with it, in fact. But people who make their own money tend to come slowly from poverty up to being fairly wealthy. And they don't make mistakes because they don't just jump in blindly. Everything's tested first. But anyway, he was making good money from that. And one of the fellows that worked for the company, he said this fellow was so good with glass, he could do any shape or anything with that glass. It was like magic. And he said that one fellow earned him £1 million, his first million. Anyway, I can't tell you exactly when he got greedy, but I can make a stab at it. When he got that contract with Harrods and he bought half the company, I reckon that's the time when he got greedy. Because no more was he chasing the money would just come in. Now, I had a girlfriend who was like me, poor, and she started working, and she had more money than she spent. Just like me, we didn't spend much money at all. We used to go out on our bicycles everywhere. So she saved up, I think, up until that point, she didn't really care about working. She used to work as little as possible. But she ended up saving up £40,000. Suddenly, greed stepped in. And after that, she couldn't work enough hours every day to make more and more money. And the interesting thing about her is that even though she's a wealthy woman now, she owns quite a lot of flats, she doesn't like to spend much money at all. She's quite tight-fisted. And another friend of mine who's a millionaire, he told me the more money he makes, the more he doesn't want to spend money. He wants to go for the things which cost very little. And my mum's boyfriend was like that. And he was wealthy as well. And yet he used to stop outside a phone box. In those days, there was a lot of phone boxes around. That's not so long ago, of course. And he would bang on the box, hoping some money would drop down. If some money did drop down, and I happened to turn up a day later or so, he'd be talking about it non-stop, as if he just won a fortune on the pools. But yeah, again, greed. Now, I did mention at the beginning of this conversation that is greed not just with humans, but with all creatures? Well, yes, it is. Don't forget, we are just another creature, humans. And what happened was they had, the scientists had all these monkeys penned in, a sort of prison, if you like, so they couldn't get out. But it was quite a large prison. I don't know how large, but they had trees and everything in that within the prison. I think it probably was Africa or somewhere. Anyway, the lorry driver got confused with the orders that was given to him. He had a lorry full of bananas, and there was all these monkeys inside, behind the fence. Well, he dropped all these bananas behind the fence where the monkeys are, instead of outside the fence, away from them, so they couldn't get at the bananas. Now, up to that point, all the monkeys was peaceful, and they used to sit around giving each other a banana, or do you want a bit of banana, and we'll share it together. But as soon as they saw that mountain of bananas, it was the equivalent of humans seeing a huge amount of gold, a pile of gold, or a pile of dollars or English money. And chaos, just everyone was fighting to get to that money. Well, to get to those bananas, everyone was fighting. Terrible fights broke out, and eventually one monkey, who was the toughest of them all, sat on the pile of bananas and wouldn't let anyone near it. Before, they were sharing. Now it's all mine, all mine. No one can have it. That's what happened to my mum's boyfriend. He had all this money. Just before he died, in fact, he sort of admitted that he's got millions. I knew he had millions. And he always poo-pooed the idea when I mentioned, why does he put in his will for a charity? But he was a callous, selfish, greedy person. And he used to say, it's my money. In other words, I can do what I want. I think he actually said that. And I can do what I want with it. In other words, he's not going to give a penny away. He wants to take it with him to the grave. Of course, he can't. So what he did, he had someone who was a sort of relative, not quite. I think he was brought up next door neighbour or something. As a child, she was a friend. So he left it all to her, as far as I know. Because I told him, if he dies intestate and they can't find any relatives, it's all going to go to the government. And I don't think he wanted the government to have it. But he was a greedy sod. I mean, I saved his life when I was a child, as he nearly bled to death, and I called for the ambulance. And he told me at the time, I won't forget you when I get older, he said. I was about 8 years of age then, 8, maybe 9, and he did forget. And when I reminded him, he just smiled, that greedy smile. I've got all the money, you're not getting a penny, even, and it doesn't matter what I said. It wasn't so much the money, it was the fact that he didn't want to leave me anything, how much he didn't appreciate what I did for him, how much he hated me. Anyway, greed. Greed is when you get an unnatural amount of whatever you consider to be important, such as bananas for the monkeys, and gold and coins and money for humans. Greed sets in. You know, I was even looking to myself. I was thinking, because I've got a 1-bedroom flat here and I've got a dining room as well, and I was thinking, I wouldn't mind another flat, a bigger flat, with an extra room and maybe bigger rooms. And then I could have a library, a room just for a library. I've always loved libraries. I'm not interested in games rooms and swimming pools, but a library, that would be wonderful, with fitted bookcases, all handmade for the room. And maybe one of these little ladders that they drag around the edge on a slider or whatever, so they can reach up to the top of the bookshelf to grab a book. Of course, the books would be in leather or whatever, you know. They would look very nice, in other words. Maybe not leather, but they would look very nice. Not just your normal paperback book. That would not be allowed on my shelf in my library in the future. Yeah, I do intend to get that. But that's the trouble with people. They get a place, and I saw one millionaire, English fellow, he was poor at one time, and he got this big place. It was a huge room. He's sitting in this huge room. And they said, well, do you feel comfortable with this house you have? He said, well, I wish I'd got another house which had a bigger room. This room is starting to feel a bit small for me, which was ridiculous. I mean, this thing was huge. And then you've got these other multi-millionaires who live in mansions, and they might be virtually on their own, living in a mansion. It's ridiculous. It's all to do with greed. I do remember once when I was living in Thailand, I had a big house and a swimming pool and everything. And it was absolutely gorgeous, this place. I had a dining room, beautiful table, and beautiful Regency-style pictures in beautiful, thick gold picture frames. And I realised at that point I had more than I needed. I just had too many rooms in that place. I didn't need so many. But I realised at the same time it made me feel comfortable. It made me feel that I didn't need any more, that I've got it all. I've got more than I want. And I was sort of satisfied with that. Yeah, I was. But there again, if I stayed years and years, maybe I would have wanted more. I don't know. But look at this fellow. Oh, what's his name now? And just a reminder, if you like my videos, please give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Thank you. And then we have Warren Buffett, who's one of the richest men in the world. And I always thought he was a very nice person until lately. I saw a documentary. This documentary, they did try to get an interview with Buffett and he refused. But they interviewed instead his niece, I think it was his niece. And she said that he paid for her schooling. But as soon as she left school, whether it be a college or a university, I don't know now, he stopped paying. And when they interviewed her, you could see she was a poor person. She wasn't living anything special. And she worked as a maid for a rich household. And they used to find it quite funny because their household were not as rich as Warren Buffett. But she seems a really nice person, this girl. But when Buffett found out that she did the interview, even though he told her don't do any interviews, he disowned her. He said, "You're not part of the family anymore. I'm not leaving you a penny when I die." He was that angry. Up until then, as I said, I liked Buffett. But now, after that, what a nasty thing to say. And to get angry over nothing. This was a really nice girl. Poor, but nice. A lot of poor people are nice, aren't they? But Buffett, even though he doesn't like spending money because he lives in the same place since donkey's years ago, he gets his thrill out of making more money. So once he makes that bit more money and he feels really good, suddenly, like a drug, he has to make more to feel good again. It's just like a drug. It wears off and you need more of the drug. And it just keeps on going. And he's doing it just for this feeling of, wow, great, I'm getting richer. It's terrible, really, isn't it? Just greed. It's a sickness that, as I've said already, it's a sickness that you get when you've got too much of something which is good.